This is Unit 11, Lesson 1, Introduction to Scatterplots. So first we'll start with the bell ringer. We're going to graph these two equations. So the first equation, the slope is 2 over 1 and the y-intercept is 6. So I'm going to start at 6 on the graph. And then I will need to go up 2 and over 1. And then I'm also going to go down 2 and left 1, just so I can get a straighter line. Okay, I'm going to connect those dots. Okay, second equation, the slope is 1 over 1, and the y-intercept is 1. So I'm going to start at a positive 1, and then I'm going to go up 1 and right 1. And then I'm going to go down 1 and left 1. And then connect those dots. And remember, the intersection spot is where your answer is. So right there where the two lines intersect is at -5, -4. Okay, next problem is asking you to compare these four functions with each other. So before I even look at the questions, I'm going to go through and find the slope and the y-intercept on each situation. So on this first graph, my slope is 4 and my y-intercept is 5. On the table, my slope is -5 and my y-intercept is 1. On the equation, my slope is 1 and my y-intercept is -2. And then on the fourth function, the slope is -3 and the y-intercept is -4. So I'm going to look at these questions down here. Part A says which function has the graph with the greatest y-intercept? So I'm looking at all of the y-intercepts, and I need to find the graph that has the greatest one. So I'm going to pick function number 1 because that has the largest y-intercept. Okay, the next question says which function's graph is the least steep? So that means it has the smallest slope. So if I look at all these slopes, I got 4, 1, -5, -3. The one with the smallest slope is function number 3. And then the last one says which functions have a graph with slopes less than -4. So if I look at those slopes again, I want something less than -4, positive or negative, it doesn't matter. So the two that have slopes less than -4 will be function number 3 and function number 4. Okay, go ahead and turn the page in your packet. We are talking about scatter plots today. So this is just an introduction. So we have a couple of choose the right statement things for the beginning of the note. So it says a scatter plot is either a graph or a table that compares one set of numerical data to another. So scatter plots are always graphs. The second one says if a pattern can be seen in the scatter plot, then it is said that there is a congruence or a correlation between the two variables. So we call that a correlation. If you can see a pattern, then that's a correlation. And then a scatter plot does or does not imply a cause and effect relationship. And scatter plots do not imply a cause and effect relationship. So then down below on the practice, it says circle the graphs below that seem to show a statistical relationship or a correlation between the x and y variables. So the first one does, because you can see that these dots are somewhat in a pattern. You can predict the direction that the dots are going in. So that one has a correlation. The second one also has a correlation because you can predict the way the dots are going. They're in a pattern. This third one over here, this bottom left one right here, does not have a correlation because the dots are kind of just scattered everywhere. And the fourth one does have a correlation. You can predict where the dots are going, and it has a pattern. So 3 of them have a correlation. This bottom left one does not. Okay, next page. Says a middle school class decided to survey their parents to see if there was a correlation between the amount of coffee they consume and the number of hours they sleep at night. The table below displays the results. So the first thing we need to do is graph all of these points on the graph down below. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm not going to talk during it. So the first column is the hours of sleep. That's your X. And then the cups of coffee is the Y. So I'm going to, for example, the first one, I'm going to go a little bit past 7.25 and then up to 2 and put a dot. Okay, 7.5, I'm going to estimate where that is, go up to 1 and put a dot. Okay, and I'm going to keep going on that until I get all of these dots on here. Please do this on your paper as well. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and do that until you're done graphing. Okay, so my dots are on my graph. Some of them were the same dot, so I didn't draw them twice because it was just one on top of the other. But let's go ahead and answer the questions below. So part B says, does there seem to be a correlation between the two variables? So yes, there is a correlation because you can predict what's happening. So as the amount of hours of sleep increases, that means that they need less coffee in the morning because it's going down. So I'm going to say yes, because there is a correlation as the amount of sleep increases, the amount of coffee decreases. Okay, part C says, one student claims that the number of cups of coffee must affect how the person sleeps at night. Do you agree or disagree? Why or why not? And I disagree because there are many reasons why someone can't sleep at night. Okay, if you need to pause the video to finish up this problem, go ahead and pause it, and then when you're ready, go to the next page. Okay, this one says, the same middle school class created a table comparing their heights and the number of siblings each of them had. The results are in the table below. So we need to graph this information on the graph on part A. The height is going to be your X, and the siblings are going to be your Y. On both columns, you'll graph all of those points on the same graph. So I'm going to go over to about where 4.6 is and go up to 1. And then over to 4.9 and up to 2. Over to 5.4 and up to 0. And so on. So I'm going to keep graphing these, and I want you to graph them too. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and do that. Okay, I'm done with my graph. You can see all the dots kind of scattered everywhere. There's really no pattern. They're not all going up or all going down. So when it says that, does there seem to be a correlation between the two variables? How can you tell? I'm going to say no, because there's no relationship between your height and how many siblings you have. Okay, and then part C says, notice a zigzag on the x-axis, so they're talking right here. What does that mean? So the zigzag means that there are some numbers that have been left out. So notice, like on the y-axis, it starts at 0 and goes 1, 2, 3, 4. They're not skipping anything. But on the x-axis, they're starting at 0, and then the next mark right here is at 4. So they've skipped 1, 2, and 3 in the middle of that. So it's just to kind of save room on your graph so you don't have to make the graph really big to fit your data. So we'll say that there are some numbers that have been left out. Okay, that's all of the lessons. So go back and rewatch anything that you need to do, finish filling out your notes, and then go ahead and get started on your homework.